So yeah, hi there everyone. We might have some more people join us as we go along, but we'll kick off now. Welcome to the UKFin Impact Funding webinar. Hopefully you expect to be here to hear about the impact funding stream that we have for UKFin. This is not a new funding stream. It's one actually we've had available for since the start of UKFin, but we're putting greater emphasis on it now to make sure we get our money spent before the end of the network. I'm John Vines. I'm a professor at the School of Informatics at the University of Edinburgh, and I'm also one of the directors and co-investigators that are co-leading the UKFin project. We also have Helen, Larita, and Ard on the call today as well. They'll say hello properly in a couple of moments. But I thought, first of all, I would just say a few things about what UKFin is. So many of you that are on the call, I'm looking at some of the names I can see on the screen here. I think some of you are quite familiar with UKFin. You've been part of our projects or been participants in our various events. Some of you might be completely new. So I thought it is worth just saying a few words about what UKFin is. Um, so for those of you that aren't aware, we're a project that was funded by the EPSRC, one of the UK research councils, to mobilize academic research around digital technologies in relation to financial services. And this also connects into banking and also related sectors as well, such as regulation technologies. And really, our emphasis is on fostering new collaborations between academics and researchers in universities and with industry, regulators, charities, non-profits, public sector, etc., etc. And really, this was recognised by the government and UKRI about 5 years ago that actually, even though there's a great wealth in the UK around financial services in terms of industry and in terms of the charity sector, actually, there was little interaction between academics and industry at the time. So really, we are part of an investment to kind of grow this sort of capability in the UK. This is a wonderful sketch note you've got on the screen that we keep launching out whenever we do these things. This is from the launch event we held in Birmingham in 2023. But it nicely conveys the great diversity of issues and topics and ambitions and the values of UKFin. And the key thing is we're often talking about the wicked problems of financial services. So these are the complex, interconnected challenges that we have which relate to financial services and which we need more collaborative research on. And you can find out a lot more about those on our website. So we're kind of unusual. I say we're a project. We're not actually a project. We're partly a network. So we're funded to build a network of between academia and industry understood in the broadest possible sense around financial services in the UK. But we're also what the funding councils call a network plus, which basically means we hand out money. Really, this is money to kind of stimulate and promote these collaborations between researchers and non-academics. And we are funded by the EPSRC, so all of our funding, generally speaking, is within the remit of what that funding council supports, which is in the engineering and physical sciences, but that's also understood in quite a broad way by our network. Just also want to point out the UKFin research agenda. So this was published in 2024, and it's helped shape some of the activities that we've done the last couple of years, including some of the funding calls that we've put out under what we've termed spotlights. And we've also run a lot of events under some of these topical spotlights as well. And really, in some respects, the research agenda exists as a way of making a little bit more concrete what we see these wicked challenges to be, and to kind of provide a bit of a loose roadmap for research in this space. Really, it's meant to be there as inspiration, really, for researchers to look at, to think about their own projects and their ambitions around submitting funding proposals to us. But also, we're using it to help inform UKRI and other entities that might fund research and innovation in this space to think about their priorities going forward and where there's still gaps in what's being funded and what hasn't been funded, and what should be funded more going forward. So please do take a look at the research agenda that's on the UKFin website. If you have your phone handy, you can use the QR code on the screen just to access it. So who we are. So yeah, you've heard a bit from me. At this point, I would like just to invite my UK Fin colleagues just to quickly introduce themselves as well. And I'll pass to Ard first of all, just because you're already unmuted.
I thought you went by age. I'm the principal investigator, PI, of the network, and I'm very happy that you all join us. It's um, it's about impact out of the research, and it's not only to spend our money, but also to get our money's worth. Because we want to have impact from the research that we have been funded or that has been conducted elsewhere. So thank you very much for joining, and I look forward to proposals. Thank you.
Thanks, Ard. Larita, do you want to quickly say hello?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Larita, and I'm Impact and Engagement Manager. Or part of my role is to highlight what difference the research makes, and also to engage and to make people talk amongst themselves, I guess, and also involving more businesses within the network. But my main priority at the moment is to highlight the the highlights of the research and the impact.
Thanks, Larita. And Helen, would you like to quickly just say hello as well?
Hi, I'm Helen Orpin and I'm the project manager for UKFin Plus. I mostly just make all of the paperwork and stuff go for the project. So all of your funding applications always go through me.
We call Helen the real boss of the network. She makes all of the hard decisions for us all. Yeah, thanks everyone. And as you can see, there's a bigger team as well behind us as well in UK Fin on the screen. I quite like this photo actually on the left because it almost makes it look like I'm as tall as Ard. Um, but which unfortunately is deceptive because I think I'm on a stool and Ard isn't. But anyway, we have a wonderful team of academics. We've got Karen Elliott, also from Birmingham. We've got Maggie Chen from Cardiff, and we've got Will Nottingbelt from Imperial, who variously are kind of leading different strands of activities and getting involved in what we do and leading and steering the ship of UK Fin. So, just I will say a little bit more about UK Fin here, but just to say, we will focus entirely on the impact stream for the majority of the remaining presentation, and we're going to give plenty of time for Q&A and discussion for any questions that you might have about this particular funding stream. Um, if you do have any questions as you go along, feel free to pop them in the chat. You can also post them, I think, through the Q&A box on Zoom, and you could even tick that to be anonymous, I think, normally. And the reason why I'm being a bit cautious about that is because it seems like Zoom has changed all of its functionality recently, which is what we were complaining about at the start. Hopefully that should work for you all. Um, but just to say a little bit about our funding approach in general. So UKFin has projects that are always about involving academics working with industry. And all of our projects do involve at least one non-HEI partner. And we put the term usually here, actually, because there is something a little bit different about the impact funding stream, which we'll come to a little bit later. But all projects should be done with an academic lead at a university or a research organization with a partner at a company and a charity and a trade body, a regulator or a public sector entity or what have you. All of our funding goes to the universities or the research organizations. It goes to the academics, but the project should be shaped around the priorities of the non-academic partners. And we do require letters of support from those partners as well as part of the applications. Um, the generally speaking, all funding that we give out has to be within 50% of the EPSRC remit. This can be a sort of quite complex thing to understand, actually, what the EPSRC remit means. We have links on our website which takes you to where EPSRC explain what their remit is. Um, and we just follow their guidance basically. So generally speaking, if you're working within engineering, the computing sciences, that's almost always within the remit of EPSRC. But also if you work within sort of areas of computing and engineering, which are about human factors and human-centered systems, that almost always comes under the remit of EPSRC as well. And it is only 50%, so we still do embrace interdisciplinarity. And, up to 50% of every project could be drawing upon expertise from disciplines that are usually outside of what EPSRC might traditionally fund. Um, and generally speaking, most applicants have not had too many challenges making that case. So the impact funding stream, what's that about specifically? So this is actually very particularly focused on how previous research that's being completed and conducted can be mobilized and applied and translated into practice. So once again, as with all of our funding streams, these should be collaborative projects. They should be led by someone in a higher education institution, university, or research organization, and done in collaboration with a non-HEI partner. Um, and this, as with all of our funding, could include an organization that academics have already worked with in the past, and this might be about extending some of that collaborative research that they've done previously. This could be about working with an entirely new non-academic organization that they've not worked with previously, but it's about extending some previous research to be applicable within that organization or within a new sector. So this also means our impact projects are quite open to work that's potentially being conducted in very different areas outside of financial services and fintech and banking, but could be really applied into that space. Um, but also, and this is the caveat I was mentioning earlier, we're very open to projects that are about collaborating with a new entity, which could be a startup or spin out that's being created as part of the impact project. And in this case, actually, we wouldn't be requiring necessarily the typical letters of support from the non-academic partner, because actually the project itself is about creating the new entity. So we're a bit more open actually in terms of how we are framing collaborations when it comes to the impact funding stream. We're very much inspired by what UKRI already do around impact. So all of the research councils have variously had their impact schemes over the years. EPSRC specifically has its impact acceleration accounts, which are block grants that are given to universities that have significant EPSRC investment already. So some of you might be at universities which have their own impact accelerator accounts. And if you are, do take a look at their guidance as well, because really the sort of things that we're asking for in our funding are very similar to the types of things that EPSRC impact accounts already fund. But some examples of what these could be, it could be about implementing recommendations from previous research into organizational processes. It could be about commercialization at a very exploratory way, about a new product, an application, or service. It could be validation of a concept that's come out of academic research with a marketplace or with some users. And it could also be about policy influence. So it might be about translating insights from your research to engage with some of the parliamentary groups, with regulators, with think tanks, and other types of policy influence entities. So, and there's many more beside this. This is just sort of an initial list. We're very, very open in terms of the types of impact projects that could be funded. What's really important is the underpinning research. So to be really clear, this is not about funding projects to do more research. I do have a little star alongside this on the screen here, and that's because actually some clever people in some disciplines are able to conduct impact research, impact work, but still make research out of it. But generally speaking, that's not what we're looking at and not what we're evaluating for these. This is entirely about translating already completed research into practice in one form or another. And as part of the application process, we're going to ask you to explain what that underpinning research is. Um, that could be describing what's been conducted previously, what's been completed, what its status is, what outcomes have come from this in terms of papers, things that are in submission, potential patents, and things like that. And it also is going to ask you to describe how this fulfills the 50% remit for EPSRC as well. Just to be really clear, in order to be eligible for our funding here, you do not need to have been previously funded by us as a network, and also you do not need to have been previously funded by EPSRC. So your work might have been, your previous research might have been self-funded, for example, by your institution or done in your own academic time or funded by a different grant provider. As long as it's still topically within the remit of EPSRC, 50%, then it's still absolutely fine. These aren't in our templates on the website at the moment, but we will be updating these very soon to have a section which has underpinning research statements put in there as well. So don't look at the moment, because if you look at the moment, you'll go, oh, it's not there. It will be there very soon. We promise. Avoiding desk rejections. I love this little video that Helen put in many years ago. That's the video done. We'll move on to the content. This is simple stuff in some ways, but sometimes we do keep getting submissions every time where people forget about these things. So I am just going to spend some time talking about how to avoid just getting a desk reject. This is basically how to get past Helen. So it gets through to people like Ard and myself to review applications. As I've said already, the lead applicant must be the HCI partner, must be an academic at a research organisation. And you also need to be a member of UKFin, which basically just means signing up to our mailing list. I'm assuming if you're on this call, you're probably on the mailing list, but if you're not, please do sign up if you're going to submit. We do need this signed letter of support from the non-HEI partner, unless it's about establishing a new startup or commercial enterprise as a spin out. Project leads and co-leads cannot also be the non-HEI partner. So you can't necessarily sign a letter of support for an organization you work with outside of the university if you're also the person making the proposal. The difference again would be that doesn't count if you are establishing a spin out because there's inevitably going to be a baked in kind of interest, I suppose, from the academics with that new activity. But generally speaking, it shouldn't be the same person. EDI and responsible research and innovation is obviously very important to us. And as part of the application process, we need to have a statement from the partners about what their EDI policies are and their practices. And this might be something that's published on their website or available publicly already, or it might be something that they write bespoke as part of the application. But that does also need to be provided to us as part of the application procedure. And in terms of funding eligibility, so as I said earlier, impact projects are the same as all other projects so far for UKFin in that the funding goes to the HEI partner directly. And of course, you can have multiple university partners as well. It's just, of course, our funding is quite limited, so you just need to think carefully about how that stretches. What is eligible? So our funding for impact is a bit different to the other funding streams in that we only fund what's referred to as directly incurred costs. So we do not fund academic investigator time for impact projects. We do fund time for staff that are research assistants or research associates or whatever to conduct the impact work though. I guess impact associates might be a better term in this case. And directly incurred still covers all the other types of things that would be classified under DI costs, such as travel, subsistence, running events, etc., etc. Our funding amount is £15,000 per project. Again, different from our previous funding streams. We fund these at 100% costs. We fund everything as opposed to the typical 80% costs. There's very tedious reasons why it's different. For this, I think it's just to do with how the grant was originally costed with EPSRC. But it's actually better for the universities because that means all of the costs for the budget are covered by UKFin. And of course, you need to go through HEI approval. It needs to be signed off by someone who can sign off these proposals in your research finance offices. And all of the funding is awarded in line with EPSRC rules and criteria. So we just follow standard guidance on those things. Word limits and completeness. Helen does check word limits, so be careful. You know, if there's a word limit on a box, it's there for a reason. And if you think, oh, these forms are quite very mean we have to be very concise, that's kind of intentional as well. Generative AI, just be careful. We have seen some obviously generative AI created proposals in the past, and what we just generally say to people is they just don't make very compelling proposals to read and to assess. So just be careful in how you use those types of tools. And you can include one diagram as well if it helps you convey the nature of your project proposal. But not too many images, please. And don't do the sneaky things where you try to hide lots of writing in an image. That doesn't tend to work out too well. And the deadline is the 21st of April, and this is our final funding call. We've had quite a lot of funding calls over the last 2 to 3 years. This is going to be the last one. If the project is funded, it needs to start within 4 months from the date that we make the offer. And the projects themselves need to be a maximum of 6 months in duration. And we're being a bit tighter with this final funding call in terms of making sure projects get started and completed because UKFin itself is coming to its end next year in terms of the timeline of our grant. And of course, we need to make sure the money goes out of UKFin's budgets and into your projects and everything gets spent. So we have very minimal scope for project extensions. All of the application forms will be on the website. Actually, there's all sorts of stuff there already, but as I say, maybe don't go immediately and download them because we will be updating the impact specific application form template soon. And we will email everyone that's registered for this webinar when they're online and available. But hopefully that will be in the next week to 2 weeks maximum. And you're able to withdraw an application once you've submitted it, but you shouldn't be amending it. So don't worry, just work to the deadline. Basically, is what we would say. Don't keep in mind you can't keep changing things once something's been submitted and processed by Helen and the team.